Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to deconstruct one of the most spectacular and, honestly, cautionary corporate collapses of the dot-com era, the story of Lucent Technologies.
So let's just start with a number that is, well, it's kind of hard to even wrap your head around. $72 billion. To put that in perspective for you, that's more than the entire GDP of some countries back then. And that's how much market value just, poof, vanished from this one company in only 2 years.
And for all the people who invested their hopes, their savings into the company, and, a lot of them were Lucent's own employees. Well, that's $72 billion translated to this, a stock price collapse of over 90%. I mean, it was a complete and utter wipeout.
So you just have to ask, right? How could a company with this incredible pedigree, a company that was supposed to be a pillar of the new internet economy, just completely implode? Okay, let's really get into it.
You see, this $72 billion meltdown, it isn't just some story about a failed company. No, it's the perfect case study of what happens when corporate ego and, let's say, overly ambitious strategy get caught up in the craziness of a market bubble. I mean, the sheer scale of this collapse was just so immense that it became way more than just a business headline. It became a defining cautionary tale for a whole generation of investors and CEOs.
But to really, truly understand the epic fall, you first have to appreciate the company's incredible rise. Because before the collapse, Lucent was an absolute giant.
Now, what's really wild when you look at this slide is just how fast this all happened. I mean, think about it. In 1996, it spun off from AT&T, and it's the talk of the town. By 2000, it's on top of the world. And just 6 years later, it has to merge with a rival just to stay alive. A whole corporate life cycle in a single decade. It's crazy.
Back in the late 90s, if you were a company building out the internet, chances are you were buying your gear from Lucent. They made the really essential stuff, the fiber-optic equipment, basically the physical backbone of our new digital world. And as the internet boomed, well, their sales went absolutely stratospheric.
But, and this is a really big but, this whole incredible success story had a fatal flaw right at its very core. It was all built on one very dangerous assumption.
The company's leadership, and to be fair, a lot of market analysts, they were all operating under this belief that the growth in internet traffic was just infinite. It was a classic sign of market euphoria, this idea that this time it's different, the boom will never, ever stop.
And this right here, this just brilliantly lays out the flawed logic. You can see exactly how one bad assumption just snowballs into the next. They assumed infinite demand, so okay, they built a massive inventory. When that inventory wasn't selling as fast as they thought, they started aggressively pushing it onto their partners. And then, the worst part, they reported those shipments as actual sales. It was a complete house of cards.
And the result of that huge bet on infinity? This number, $16 billion. By 2001, Lucent was sitting on a $16 billion mountain of unsold equipment, just collecting dust in warehouses. This wasn't just a simple forecasting error. It was a physical, tangible sign of a massive strategic blunder.
You know how it goes. Sooner or later, every bubble has to burst. And when the dot-com bubble finally popped, the harsh light of reality exposed all the cracks in Lucent's foundation. The unraveling was fast, and it was brutal.
So you're probably asking, how did they hide this massive problem from investors for so long? Well, they used this deceptive accounting trick called channel stuffing. What that means is they were basically forcing their partners to take on huge amounts of product they knew they couldn't sell, and then they booked those shipments as revenue. It made their sales numbers look way, way better than they actually were.
So once the truth started leaking out, the consequences were just devastating. First, they had to do these huge inventory write-downs. Then, they had to restate their revenue, which revealed the accounting games. The CEO resigned under pressure from the SEC. The stock, of course, went into an absolute free fall. And Lucent's collapse created this ripple effect, taking down a bunch of smaller telecom players with it.
Okay, so after all of that, what are the big lessons here? What are the key takeaways from this corporate catastrophe, and why does this story still matter so much today?
Well, when you compare Lucent's strategy to companies that actually survived the bust, like its rival Cisco, the difference is just night and day. While Lucent was betting the farm on infinite demand and hype, Cisco was way more conservative. While Lucent overproduced like crazy, Cisco managed its inventory closely. And that, right there, was the difference between survival and collapse. A strategy built on hype versus one grounded in reality.
The story of Lucent is so much more than just ancient history. It's this incredibly powerful lesson about the dangers of letting tech hype get way ahead of real-world demand. It shows you how even the so-called experts can totally fail to ask the tough questions. And maybe most importantly, it's a timeless warning that without strong leadership and honest accounting, even the biggest giants can fall. And all of this leaves us with one final and kind of provocative thought. As we stand here on the edge of new tech waves like 5G and 6G, and we hear all those familiar promises of endless demand and explosive growth, have we really learned the lessons of Lucent? Or are we maybe just destined to repeat the same mistakes all over again?